Well, I'm Anezka,
Hello, I'm SumOne.
and welcome to our podcast, which we've called Everything
And Nothing.
and Nothing,
Number 2.
and everything in between.
Exactly.
And we created that title really tongue-in-cheek, right? Because this is really a podcast it's really about talking. And it's about, it's bringing our opinions and our ideas to the table. We're not professing we know anything except what we know.
Yeah, I know a thing or two. This is actually her creation, the name, but it really kind of resonates and it encapsulates, everything from philosophy to current events to, anecdotal stories that we've built up over the last decades of life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So
It's very
it's a
reach.
reach, yeah. And and I don't think, for me anyway, the reason why the name came is that for me to distill to one topic, I don't know if that's possible for me.
It's possible, but it'd only be, one episode probably.
maybe 10.
Yeah.
So I have to open up the parachute because I'm
Yep.
ever evolving and changing, and the things I want to talk about are too. So
Yeah, and who we are.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, hopefully throughout this endeavor, we are going to expand our own understanding of what we're talking about and learn from each other, learn from people who give feedback. And, it's a much bigger circle than just the two of us at the end of the day. And I hope to
Absolutely.
expand and grow during this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which just brings me to one quick thought that
What's that?
this is really kind of the first creative endeavor that I'm ever really doing for myself without expectations, because I'm a pretty creative person, but it's always been for a goal, like for money or for publicity to
Like
help
as an
my
actress,
business.
Yeah, like trying to get other people's...
Or trying to, there's always been a goal. And I have to say, really honestly, this is the first creation that I can think of where I'm doing it purely for the love of it. Like, I have no expectations. I just really enjoy talking about things. And so I'm really grateful that you want to do this with me, because it makes it more fun and interesting.
Well, we both got big mouths. We like to talk. We like to share, So it'll, I mean, my main goal is to have fun, really.
Yeah.
Just try something new, pour myself into it, learn more about video and audio and how to, the internet's probably the most, probably the biggest wonder of the world ever built. This whole idea that we can be interconnected across the world and share our voice, share ideas, share insights. And so this is also a way for me to learn how to step into that and really kind of embrace that tool and allow myself to be put out there. Because I've always been a little scared of that, honestly. It's like, I don't want to put my details out there because then everybody's going to know who I am and where I am, and the government's going to get me, and the stalkers are going to come, because obviously I'm worth several stalkers over here. But it's a risk. It's a little scary putting yourself out there, and
Absolutely.
I think this is going to be, in the long run, I think it's going to pay dividends and just be a good experience.
Yeah, and I want to add to that too, because I think that we've seen that it can be an atmosphere for being attacked, and sharing who you are. And so I have felt that too. And I've talked to many other people who share that, that's just, a common result of that. So yeah. And I'm really hoping just to learn more about myself through this. So I'm and we'll see where it goes.
We
See
will.
where it goes.
We will indeed.
Yeah.
Maybe to podcast 3. Maybe into the oblivion.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're still working on formats, how we want to structure this, what we want to actually bring. And the best idea we've gotten so far is to both pick a topic or a few topics that we want to kind of throw out there and dance around with, engage with, and just see, where it allows our thoughts and our attention to go. Me particularly, there was a topic that I was talking about for the last couple of weeks, which was very broad, basically value. Value, worth, wealth. And this topic stems from a question that I think all of us have asked ourselves or each other on multiple occasions, which is, what do you want to do in life? And I think that's an important question for all of us to engage with, hopefully with some frequency, because if we keep asking ourselves that and keep understanding that on a deeper level, we can actually kind of course correct our life into a direction that we meaningfully want to go towards. And so what brought me to this idea of value is that I've asked that question to multiple people, what is important to you? And multiple times I've had to come back just blank. Just people like, it's a tough one to get your head around. It's almost too monstrous of a question to really know. Mm-hmm. So by distilling it even further into the idea of what is valuable to you, what is important to you, it at least gives us a North Star of that value that we can then think of, well, how do I want to get my life in that direction? How do I want to head that direction?
Yeah, because you can put that in so many different containers. What do you value in a relationship? What do you value in your life as a spiritual being? What do you value, in everything? Your career. But what I hear you asking is that deeper core value, and that's something that I spend a lot of time thinking about myself, because we're seekers, I'm a seeker, and I have been my whole life. I'm always looking for that next rock to turn over and learn something about myself. And I think that question has changed with age, like one of the things that I really, really value in what I'm doing right now is to be authentic and to really like learning how to take care of myself, because I think that that's part of being authentic, is learning how to care for the self. And for me,
it's important.
Yeah. And I feel like we're taught not to do that.
Well, we think we don't want to be egotistical, therefore we should care about others and not ourselves.
Exactly. Right? We're being selfish. That's what I heard growing up. You're being selfish. And I'm like, well, how am I being selfish? Because I am sick, or I'm needing something. And finally there was, I don't remember who I heard it from, but it was many, many, many years ago. And I'm a believer in counselor and self-help modalities. And this particular individual said to me, well, it's like if you think of yourself as a cup, and you just keep giving and giving and giving, and you never put something back in there, it's going to be dry. And everybody loses, because then you get sick, or you're tired, or you're cranky, or you're an asshole, or whatever, because you're done. And nobody benefits. But if you keep filling up your cup and you're overflowing, then everybody wins. Everybody benefits.
Yeah, it's a little paradoxical, but I think it is being selfish for the right reasons is being selfless, as strange as it sounds. And the one analogy that I remember growing up with in my dad and stepmom's home was always put your own oxygen mask on before you put on somebody else's. And it makes sense. If you're not able to, stay conscious and be strong and be able to help lift others up, if you lose yourself, it's like you're no longer capable of helping. You're no longer capable of lifting up your family, your community, your friends, when they actually need you. So it's a balance, and taking care of yourself in the context of value is very important.
Yeah. And it changes, because, I work I'm a feng shui consultant in Space Clear, and it really is about looking at what's wrong in some way. It's looking at what's right too, but it's really about going in and fixing, this doesn't feel right. This isn't working for me right now. I need more nutrition. I need more money. So, I'm going in and constantly looking at how to, help people. And I think a lot of the healing professions, we do that, like nurses and, so it's been a real challenge for me to stop that mechanism and be, how am I feeling right now?
Well, one value for sure that I think with regards to self-help and helping others, one thing that's valuable and important to be working towards is health.
Yeah.
Physical health, physical well-being.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
We can't divorce ourselves from that. It's at the core physically who we are, how we feel every day when we wake up.
Right.
And if we don't have that, everything else becomes exponentially harder.
Right.
So along that means, I would argue that one thing that's definitely valuable, one thing that's definitely important to be working towards is good diet, exercise, yes, taking care of yourself in different physical modalities, whether that be sports or yoga or Pilates or whatever your cup of tea is, and drink some tea while you're at it, because tea can be good for you.
Super good.
Yeah. Plant medicine, baby. But health is important for sure.
Well, and it's funny because I was thinking the exact same thing. And I think that, this is a concept I've been thinking about. I think that we're in a really, I don't want to know if it's epidemic, of unhealthiness. I just feel like as a collective consciousness in the world, there is so much unhealthy food, sickness and habits, and it isn't about, again, taking care of ourselves, which I also think goes to being responsible for yourself. I think that's almost the first step,
Discipline?
So if you, of taking responsibility rather than putting it off on a pill or a doctor or giving away the power.
So learning
you can
willpower.
use it, you can use them.
Yeah.
But I think it begins with hey, I'm responsible for my health, so I'm the one who's going to have to do something to start to make these changes.
Well, all of your decision making is based on the little voices that talk around inside yourself.
Right.
Like, eat the cake. No, don't eat the cake.
Right.
And really getting to know who you are on that level and being able to make those decisions internally is willpower, is discipline, and then leads you to the ability to make those decisions, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, and I can speak from personal experience because there was a while where I was I treated any, doctors or whatever, like they were gods. They knew more than I. And I would say, after going through cancer, 9 years ago, I went through chemo and radiation for a rare form of cancer that was found in my rectum. I know, super fun. I can talk about it now, all those fun parts. But what I learned through that experience was that you have to advocate for yourself. And if you want to live, if you want to survive, if you want to be a healthier person, then, or meaning you, I'm saying you, but I'm saying I, if I want to do this, then I'm the one who has to pull up my bootstraps and make the changes. I'm the one who has to change the patterns. I'm the one who has to go out and look for that next resource instead of being like, oh, I can't, or, then going and being like, oh, I'm just going to take a bunch of pills, over-the-counter pills, and rather than, what's going on? Like, why am I so sick?
Yeah. So if I was to ask you face to face right here, right now, what is the most valuable piece in your life's equation?
The most valuable?
Yeah. What would you have for that?
Well, for me, I think the most valuable it goes back to some form of spirituality or nature. I would say that is the absolute most valuable. And I think the two are connected. I think spirituality and nature are completely connected, because it is only when I go out in nature, when I'm away from the noise, I'm away from the electronics, I'm with myself, I'm with this very real vibratory world that is beautiful and vibrant, no matter where it is. Something happens to me. Something in my rhythm gets put right. Something, it's like no matter where I am in my life, no matter how I'm feeling, there is a sense of peace.
Grounding, yeah.
That it's like, okay, what's up, girl? What's up? What's going on? And then it's kind of like a reboot of a computer, I think. It resets me. It reminds me of my breath. It reminds me of what's real. Like, okay, this is what's real.
Yeah.
That stuff out in the world and what you can buy and all this crap that we deal with, that's not real. I'm sorry. I mean, it is, but it's not.
We spend a lot of time literally living in a virtual world these days. You know, living through screens, through words, through other people's interpretation of an experience, rather than just like being in the world, knowing the truth for ourselves as it just laid out in front of us,
And how do we do that? I mean, because nobody really knows how to do that. How do you live in the virtual world? How do you live with technology? I mean, we don't have to answer this, but it's a rhetorical question. Like, how do we...
And as devil's advocate, not only you say nobody knows how to do that, we also all know how to do it because we all do it every day, you know. But the question is, how do we do it better? How do we do it more responsibly, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't quite know how to do it.
Well,
I mean...
You do have a phone.
I do.
We're doing it right now.
We're doing it right now, you know.
Right now, yeah.
And I guess that's it. It's like, how do you find that balance? You know, how do you keep your cup overflowing?
Yeah.
How do you keep staying connected, like you said, to what you value? And so let's switch it to you. So what do you value? What do you value?
So I've asked this question to multiple people, as I said, and I think some of the most common responses are relationships, family.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really good argument that you can make. I think that how you treat and people in your circle and who you know, that effectively is opportunity. That effectively, you know, having a good net of people around you makes life very, very much easier.
Oh, absolutely.
Very nice. I think intelligence, I could make an argument towards, like, you know, just what you know through your experiences allows you to navigate in a more purposeful way. I think intelligence is a piece of it. You know, at the same time, I think, you know, you touched on spirituality, and I would put in that camp, like, you know, emotional maturity, because emotion is another way that you can navigate the world. And if you don't have that, if you're not emotionally aware, life gets really hard. You know, I think it's a very key piece of the puzzle. At its core, what's the most valuable? To me, the most valuable is curiosity. Curiosity, because without curiosity, I would never have thought to ask this question. And if you're not asking questions, then you're not gaining intelligence. You're not learning how to maintain better health. You're not navigating relationships better by questioning, what did I do wrong? How do I do better the next time? So if I was to really boil down what the key linchpin piece of what drives me is, it's my curiosity and wanting to understand things better. Yeah.
I would never have thought you would say that, but you know, now that you're saying that, that makes a lot of sense, because you are very intelligent.
A curious cat. And
you're you like to think about things. You like to, you know, like me, I'm more, we talked about this at the first podcast, you know, you are a scientist. You are a scientist. I'm more the woo-woo. I walk in between the worlds. And so, yeah, so I see that in you, because you like to get something and you think about it, and you take it apart and you put it back together, and then you take it apart again and you put it back together again, and you read this and you study and then you try it again. So yeah, I would see that as the driving force for you. And then, yeah, and in contrast with me, that it's like I've always had this very strong spiritual connection to the cosmos and this otherworldly place. And that's what drives me, is this heart, this intuition, this
a divinity.
A divinity is just, it's constantly pulling me forward. And I don't consider myself religious at all. But you know, and I have nothing against religion at all. I think everything is important. But for me personally, again, I don't fit into a box, so I'm very eclectic. I've studied everything. Buddhism.
Me too.
You know, Unity Church, this, Baptist, I mean, everything. And I find that it's too hard for me. I don't believe in one way. It doesn't make sense to me at all.
Well, there's an Anezka way, and there's a Dane way, and there's a whatever your name is out there way. We each have our own, you know, our own path we walk.
Yeah. So I love that. So what are you, you know, so does that curiosity, you know, that driving force, do you feel like that bleeds over into every part of your life? Like relationships and money and...
I mean, you know, you said it in the beginning of this, everything is connected. So definitely it does carry over. To what extent? I don't know. Probably a good amount. Yeah. You know, I remember back when I was a little kid, you know, I'll never forget this. I remember we were watching an action movie at my dad's house, and there's a van, chase scene, the van's cruising down the alley, you know, running away, and it smashes through a big stack of boxes, and the boxes go flying everywhere. And I turned to my dad and I was like, "Hey, Dad, what was in those boxes?" And they made fun of me for the next 15 years because of that. But I thought it was a valid question. And I guess the answer probably was air, but I didn't know that. I thought maybe it was something interesting.
Oh, that's so cute. That is so you. You were always, as a child, you were definitely very like...
Do you want to die by lava or being frozen to death?
I didn't
Ask
like that
what if
game.
questions all the time. I remember that.
All the time. Do you want to be, your head chopped off or you want to fall off a building? I'm like, neither. That would always be my answer. None of the above.
That's the correct answer.
I don't want to die. Or in my sleep. Anyway, yeah.
Well, this conversation is value. It's a valuable piece of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like we could probably carry on with the subject for a long time.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll come back to it at some point.
Yeah.
But I did want to, extend a turn to you and say, what did you want to bring? What topic do you have in mind?
I mean, just segueing, being part of Authentic, what's been coming up for me these last couple weeks is communication, right?
Yeah.
And I've always thought of myself as kind of a good communicator because I like to talk, right? But I find lately that as I keep learning and healing and unraveling, that my communication is spotty. It's like, I feel like there's a lot of holes in it. That's maybe more true. And I don't know if this is, I'm just having this epiphany potentially but I think maybe part of my communication is disintegrating because of the use of so much texting. And I feel like I used to do long explanations and sentences, and I find that I'm thinking certain things, but I'm only sharing bits and pieces of information. And it's been causing me a lot of problem. I'm not saying that this is what's happening, but I'm just having an awareness, what's changed?
Yeah, we're looking at it.
I don't think I used to have this hard of a problem with communication. But lately I feel like I'm leaving out a lot of really important pieces with the people that are important to me. And then we're having issues. It's creating issues in my life. Just recently, my husband Jim and I'm on a fast right now. Speaking of health, I'm taking personal responsibility. I'm doing a cleanse. Woohoo! Actually, it's okay. It's good. But in his mind, so we had set this up. We set this time frame up. It's okay, these are the 5 days that we're going to do a cleanse. And in my mind, I was thinking it's going to be business as usual. Yes, maybe I won't do some certain jobs or whatever, but I'm going to plan things. I'm going to go out and see people. I'm going to do this podcast, But in his mind, he was seeing it as a personal retreat where we were going to just take it all off and maybe do light walks and go for a massage or, just very more of an introspective time. And that didn't connect, right? So he's thinking this and I'm thinking this, and somehow I didn't communicate it and he didn't either. And then it comes up, and yesterday my daughter was we want to go to Omsi, and I'm like, yeah, for sure. And then we got into a huge fight because he's like, why aren't you retreating? And I'm like, what retreat? And so again, it's that thing of I'm privy, I am aware of all of my information of what I'm thinking, feeling, seeing. But I often forget that the other person can't read my mind, right? So I'm sharing bits and pieces, and then there isn't a connection. There's a disconnect.
Yeah,
and then
that image isn't being conveyed.
Right, then there's a fallout.
Yeah.
And he's seeing this, and I'm seeing this, and and it seemed like we were communicating clearly, right?
Yeah.
But, I don't know. And it happened with you, too. We were going to come see you, and some things fell through the,
It was very minor, but it definitely happened. So I guess the question is, it's we have an interpretation of the world in the future that we expect to see manifest and come. Yeah. And then so how do you succinctly, and, because you don't want to, bloviate, an entire book to somebody, this is exactly what's going to happen, and here's my idea exactly in every detail. I'm not writing the Game of Thrones or anything over here. Right. But how do you effectively convey and how do you pick out the key pieces that actually matter also?
Yeah.
Because you have to get that across.
Yeah. And I'm like, like for me, the first thing is always like the consciousness. I think that's the first step for me in continuing to create an authentic life, is to know who I am. And I can only make changes when I consciously know what's up. And that's kind of the curiosity piece, too. You could bring that in there too. It's through your curiosity that poses the question that you can maybe figure out something about yourself, right?
Yeah.
That then it's the impetus to take that next step.
Communication's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've always been a big fan of language and just the idea of relaying information. I mean, that's ultimately is how we share and how we learn. So being a curious guy, obviously I like to follow the thread of language to try to digest it and learn more. But it's interesting because, the most effective language is going to say as much as possible in a few words as possible. And that's one of like the staples of writing, is how do you say the same thing in less words? And that's considered like elegant writing. It's tricky. And, I would say maybe it's the most valuable thing.
I don't, nice segue there.
Communication it's important. It is your ability to make relationships.
But don't you also find, like, I've been going through phases where it feels really difficult to communicate also because I feel like I'm evolving so much that words sometimes just cannot
encapsulate what you're trying to say.
Right. It feels sometimes hollow and empty, and I'm using the same words to explain the same experiences.
I've done hallucinogens, so yes, I've definitely experienced being able to explain what I've felt.
Right, but yet the experience is like more than words can express, and that to me is frustrating as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's words that try to do that, like God, for example, tries to encapsulate all of this unknown, energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also the communication pieces, I think, also is like, is it also, and I mean, maybe not everybody's experiencing this, just this is maybe in my life. But I'm also thinking like maybe the dropped out pieces are happening because the world does feel accelerated and there is more to do. And I feel like there is more multitasking. So it's not really just having a conversation anymore. And again, this morning with Jim, we have our usual morning check-ins for our relationship, and he shares and we listen to each other, and
Smart.
Then we don't give feedback unless the other person asks. But as soon as I started talking, he got on his iPad and started doing stuff, and I was like, hey, what the fuck? Hello. Like, we're having a conversation. He's like, well, I can hear you. Right? And and I've done that too, so I'm not calling Jim out. I've done it too.
But you felt it. Yeah.
Right, I felt it.
You wanted real 100% communication. Yeah.
But it's dawning on me as part of this communication piece is part of the disconnect and the things dropping out and the spaces is because there's so much happening, right? Because I multitask a lot. I'll be driving and talking, not on my phone, but I'll, like take a quick call or something. Or doing something in the kitchen while I'm having a conversation or whatever. And I don't think there is as much retained, like sometimes I don't really remember what I agreed to.
Yeah. I would say one of my biggest strengths as a human being is my ability to retain words. I think I think very verbally, and just words make a lot of sense to me. I take things pretty literally for the most part. But communication-wise, there's two things I wanted to bring up. One of the main issues, one of the main problems with communication is that because we all have our unique set of experiences, and we all, learn words through different sets of experiences, the same word doesn't mean the same thing to everybody.
Oh, that's so true.
And you can do that even just by picking like 3 different dictionaries up and like just seeing the definitions are not literally the same across the board for every word. There is deviation that occurs. So that's just something to be aware of when you're trying to, and I've seen it myself. People are like, oh, you seem angry. And I'm like, no, fuck you. I ain't angry. I'm frustrated. But to somebody else, that's anger. And it's
right. Well, we've had that.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah,
because
I've
had that exact same conversation with you and people close to me. Because it's like, in my mind, I don't get angry very often, but I get frustrated a fair amount, and I've seen myself angry. And that guy's kind of out of control. Back when I was a kid, like, throwing a tantrum or whatever, like that's angry. And I like to believe I've grown past that. So I'm specific with my words in that regard.
It is hard to read your frustration, though, I will say.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what that is. Well, so maybe we'll have to investigate on that. I mean, is there something that's hard?
Speaking of communication.
Yeah.
A big chunk of communication is not verbal, right?
Absolutely.
So, when I'm frustrated, I'm telling you I'm frustrated with my stoicism, with my courtness, with, my kind of cold, expressionless face, probably. Like, I don't know how I'm explaining.
There's vibes coming from your eyes.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm irradiating energy. So, but that's a huge part of how we communicate is through expression, through sharing of energy, through vocal intonation, through we all know this. We all live this.
Right.
Which is one of the reasons why it's so important to have these face-to-face conversations and why we should all be pushing to get outside of the virtual realm and into nature, even into the real world out here, the natural habitat where we all live, and really be having these face-to-faces because there is no substitute to that.
No.
As much as I love talking out to you guys and you guys love listening to us, that's not a real substitute for doing this in person because it's a one-way engagement here. This is real. This is nice.
Yeah.
And we need more of this as humanity, I feel.
And then speaking into things because, I mean, we used to have a lot of communication issues because I was constantly interpreting your frustration look as anger. And then
you just didn't want to approach that.
Right. It was just like I was shut down or I'm like, well, F this. I'm out of here. Like, and, you're just being a dick right now and I don't want to have anything to do with you.
Yeah.
I would be so angry. I'm like, geez, after everything I've done for you, that martyr card.
Yep.
But anyway, but what we finally did is we had some real conversations and we decided that we would inquiry one another. Like I would say, hey, Dane, are you mad? I'm feeling like you're angry right now. Are you angry? And that was one of the ways we started doing the breakthrough.
Yeah. I mean,
and you would say, and you would be like, no, I'm not angry right now. I'm frustrated. I'm like, wow, that doesn't look like frustration to me. Right?
Well,
but
it's because we have different experiences.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So have you ever had anything like that with me, though, where I'm being a certain way and you're reading it? The other day when I was cleaning, you thought I was mad at you.
I mean, I thought so not really. I don't know what was going on at that point. But for sure, there's times where I haven't spoken into things, and whether it's because I don't want to hurt the other person or I don't want to. I mean, unfortunately, it's easier not to say anything in most situations. The best way to avoid risk is to just stay still and not do anything, which also makes life boring and doesn't allow for a curious man to progress.
I was going to say.
So it's no good in the long run.
I know. I was going to say, well, how about that curiosity to see what would happen if you confront something? But there is a right time, I think. There is a right time and a right place.
An interesting piece of communication that I've noticed myself is that we've all have a superficial programming level of communication, which people would call small talk, right?
Ugh. Yeah.
Where we all come together and it's like, hey, how's it going? How you doing? Fine. How's the weather? There's these pre-constructed paths we can follow that are comfortable and are predefined and are really good at absolutely communicating nothing. And it's kind of, it's a bane to me. It's almost an annoyance to me because I feel like it's hindering truly finding insights about people. So one thing that I'd like to bring up about communication is that I find it very important and valuable to try to phrase things in ways that are not normal. I like to try to break the pattern to a point that people have to actually stop and think and be like, what?
Interrupt the pattern.
They have to think about what those words mean, and they have to come up with their own novel, true response
as opposed to a regurgitated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good. Yeah. Family's fine. Yep.
Yeah.
No, you have to really learn about somebody. I've found you have to find ways to break the mold of normal conversation. So for anybody listening, I would just say, think about that. Yeah. Think about how to engage with people in a way that's really meaningful and actually exposes who they are.
Mm-hmm. So do you have an example of a question?
Yeah.
No.
Not really.
I mean,
it's kind of a spontaneous thing.
Okay. Yeah, because I've been in a situation, and rather than like, what do you do, whatever, seeing something like, hey, what do you love?
Yeah, that's a good one.
What do you love?
That's a good one.
What in your life do you love right now? And my favorite answer was this one friend. She's like, I love to say the word fuck. And I was like, wow, okay.
I remember that.
I think we can be friends. And I'm hoping, I don't know who's listening, but maybe I should have done a disclaimer. I'm going to do a little tangent here, but we're going to just be who we are. And we're not meant to offend anybody.
Yeah, fuck that.
But I know that would when some of my people in my circle, and please just know that that's not what this is meant to do, and we're going to just be ourselves.
Speaking of communication, this is an interesting piece. Language evolves. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, the F word, that was a no-fly zone. You just didn't go there, period. And it was even more that way when you were a child, I imagine.
Oh, yeah.
It was actually off limits, is where it's just, 30 years later, it's common vernacular.
Yeah.
Everybody says it, and it's just normal parlance.
Yeah. Yeah, so, for most people, it's normal.
Yeah.
I would say some of the religious realms, it's definitely not.
That's true.
Yeah, my mom,
very strict.
Absolutely no. We would all work really hard not to say that word out of our respect for my mom.
I had my mouth washed out with soap once down on the farm.
By my mom?
No, it was by an aunt, but it was the same circle. Circle. Those words don't fly.
Yeah, he's like, you don't go there.
Yep.
You just don't do that. Yep. So fascinating. Yeah. Well, and then speaking of communication too, is like how to deal with when people are communicating and people aren't hearing each other. So I was at OMSI yesterday with the grandkids, and my grandson and I there's this one really cool, it's a science, what would you call it?
Science museum.
Yeah, science museum. And there was this one really cool installation that had all these tubes with air, and you just put these balls in. The kids could put balls in all these different areas, and it sucks them up and shoots them out, and you can turn some off and turn them on. And we were just at the end just doing our own thing, and there was this woman sitting in the middle doing it with some of her kids. And one of her kids came over and turned the air off to the mom. I'm saying this in retrospect now. At the time, I didn't really know what happened. She just looked at us and said, "Hey, you turned our air off." And I was like, "Huh?" I was like, "No, we didn't. We're just sitting here doing our thing. I don't know what you're talking about." She's like, "No, the air's off. The air's off." And I saw then that it was, her son that had done it. And he comes back over, and then he was doing stuff. And I'm like, "No," I said, "it was your son who came over." It's like, "No, he's helping me. He's helping me turn it back on." And it was so weird because we just kept she just kept accusing, and I just kept saying "Look, we haven't touched anything." And I don't know why, but I got so pissed. And, and I was like, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately, because I don't like it when anger's not my comfortable zone. I've gotten really comfortable at it, and I've welcomed it to the table of my life, my authenticity, but it's not my go-to. And what I realized later is that, I've still got some things to unpack around it, but what I wish I would have done, and I think this is one of my top communication tools, is inquiry. If I would have said something to her like, "Why do you think we turned it off?" Or, "I just told you we didn't turn it off. Are you not hearing what I said?" Or something like asking a question, inquiring, rather than just saying, "We didn't do it. We didn't do it. We didn't do it," because she just couldn't hear it.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes people don't want to hear also. A lot of times communication is not being tried to be achieved on both sides. So watch out for that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. and then when the other thing is like, why does it even matter? I mean, big deal. But it was a trigger for me. It's obviously something that's, and I think it goes back to, issues that I had where where I got blamed for a lot of stuff that I did not do. And no matter how much I was telling the truth, people didn't believe me.
So you felt
they couldn't hear it.
Pattern.
Yeah. So I felt that old pattern coming on, like, hey, I'm just sitting here. I didn't do anything, and it's that, yeah. So again, it's another way. So I'm always looking. So communication's up for me right now. I'm looking at, so of course this would have happened to me because it's in my field. And what's interesting is that because I'm not communicating clearly, how it's manifesting is through frustration or anger. It's not people being, it's just, so I don't know. So it's interesting to just be aware. Like I'm really trying to be more and more aware. And instead of being like, they're assholes or they're blah, 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 be like, wow, I've been trying to be more like, what's going on with me? Because I always believe that I'm the common denominator in anything.
It's the only thing you can change. It's the only thing you can really inquiry about.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just another little example of communication mishap. I don't know.
Yeah, that is that.
But I mean, it happens all the time, right? The communication piece. I mean, obviously. I mean, we're a species of communication.
No communication's perfect,
Yeah.
We get as good as we possibly can. We convey as much as possible, like I said, in the least amount of words. Mm-hmm. And, it's never... You will never understand completely my perspective because we are our own separate island consciousness.
Yes.
But communication allows us to at least get close and connect and share ideas, which is extremely important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how are we doing on time?
Do you want to communicate anything else?
Well, I mean, that was just making me think about...
Probably pushing.
Yeah, I think that was just making me think of some other things about communication. And that's the beautiful thing about conversations is that you never know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And how it unravels. And it kind of reminds me, so we're both writers, and it's interesting as a writer, at every junct of the story, there's a million different avenues it could take.
True.
And so I feel that when we're talking, I can feel all the...
all the potential doors sitting there. Like, which one do I go through now?
Yeah. And it just brings me in this moment, something that's been really on my mind also is, as far as communicating, is how safe do people feel to really talk about anything? Well,
you're saying like how authentic are people because it makes you vulnerable to truly express who you are? Is that what you're getting towards?
Kind of, but more like the question.
What question?
Is there a stifling atmosphere that is restricting the exchange of information, ideas, and public debate?
Oh, of course. I think everybody kind of puts on a different hat or is a bit of a chameleon depending on what group of friends they're with or who they're talking to,
Yeah.
We all kind of adapt to the relationship as it's laid out. I mean, comedians say it, play to the room, right? Mm-hmm. And we all do that to some degree. And it's, you can think of it as, the outside peer pressure stifling you out, or you can think of it as you flexibly adapting in order to better communicate to the room that you're in. Mm-hmm. I don't know which one you'd say, but there are definitely times where I don't communicate on purpose because, it seems too difficult. Mm-hmm. It seems like it might not be worth the risk. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, and that takes us back to our very first podcast. We were talking about conflict.
Yep.
And I think that, for me, for sure, it's like I'm getting better at it. I would say in the past, I come from a very strong victim-minded person. That's probably one of the crosses that I've had to bear this life, is that I was taught that really well. And so when I talk about having personal responsibility, it really comes about that place of claiming things. And from that point of view, it was most important to survive, and to survive means you make yourself as small as possible, and you do not rock the boat.
Be invisible.
Right.
Yeah.
And I became a really good chameleon.
Yep.
I mean, people loved me. Why? Because I could be whoever anybody wanted me to be. And I did have a lot of friends. And I would say over the last 20 years, that's been back rolling, right? I've been like becoming more and more authentic. And it's interesting because the circle of friends is shrinking. And, but with that, there is more, I'm not afraid of conflict, because I think you have to be okay to stand in front of something or someone and not lose yourself. Because that's what I used to do. I used to lose myself. If somebody camped me, I'm like, oh, you're blah, 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 blah. Then I'd be like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have said that, blah, blah. Right? But now it's like, I know who I am. I know what I want to say. And I'm starting to peel back that more and more.
Good.
And even in the uncomfortable places, politics, religion, race, sexism. I mean, those are the hot topics, right? And maybe one day we'll delve into that. But I think to be truly authentic, it means that I have to overcome fear, to be fearless in my communication. Now, I think there's a difference between pushing things in people's face, and I'm not talking about that.
Yeah, you don't have to be rude.
Right, but
or
just
obscene.
having a conversation and sharing opinions, because I do feel like more in the last 10 years, like it's like there's more and more lockdown, of
censorship,
Yeah. I mean, especially since the pandemic.
It's run rampant.
Right?
Well, it's been slowly ratcheting down for a long time. You can see it in the way that, algorithms through Google and YouTube have changed to like basically like you watch videos now on the internet and like there's just words that people have to bleep out, like kill and drug and abuse. Like people like literally self-censor themselves on these different dictionary definition words because, the algos penalize you for mentioning them. So censorship it's been encroaching, and I, as somebody who believes that I want to actually hear what you have to say and I want to actually understand who you are, so I can better understand the world. Yeah, I don't like filters. I want people to be able to be as authentic and true as possible. And maybe I'm a bit strange in that regard because I also really enjoy debate. I really enjoy arguing. Like I enjoy finding what we disagree on in order to talk about it. Because if I agree with you and we're having a conversation, I'm not learning anything. I'm learning that we get along well, and that's cool. Mm-hmm. I like getting along with people.
Yeah,
but
it feels good.
If I find something that I disagree with somebody on, maybe I will learn something. Mm-hmm. And I want to know better. I want to understand better. So
I think that's where our world is evolving to. I mean, that's my hope. That's my hope, that people are evolving to the place where, we can accept, like being that curious, like going into conversations, not looking for more of the same, right?
Yeah.
But following the energy in the world, in relation, in where it takes you with whomever, communicating in something that can, like you said, make you change and grow and surprise you even.
Yeah.
Like
those moments where you actually find a new way to look at something and it shifts who you are. That's priceless.
Yeah. But that means that we have to overcome our creature of comfort, though, which we're so, and I think that goes back again to that value of health and disease. It's like in feng shui, there's the premise that, everything is alive. So this table, like everything's made of energy, right? And and things are either imbuing life. They're either, like thinking of it as a spiral, your life as a spiral, your environment as a spiral, the things in your home as a spiral. And either things are bringing life, it's going up into the life-giving, or it's decaying and dying. And you can think about it like a bouquet of flowers. So if you think about flowers,
makes sense.
They grow and they get vibrant, right? And then they reach their max and then they die, and you can feel that cycle, right? And then you can feel the life going out of them, and they die, and then they're like completely dead and they're dust.
Dust to dust.
Right. So in an environment, life is, like things are either lifting you up and you're learning and you're growing, or you're stagnant and, and we get into these patterns.
We do.
And these patterns are like something happens, maybe you sprain your ankle or you're mad at somebody or something happened, and you make a less than positive choice in your life. Watch too much TV, drink too much wine, do something that maybe isn't for your highest benefit. And then it just takes the energy down a little bit, or you, like we were talking about that eating, and then all of a sudden you eat something and you're like, oh, you're the self-talk is like, oh, wow, you're a fat pig, or that's not good, or now you're going to gain some weight, or, and you feel bad about yourself. Yeah. But that energy goes down. And if you keep on that cycle,
you die.
Right? It's like then you stop going out. Then you don't want to hang around with people. All of these things happen. So it's like finding that, going out and exploring and finding these new ways it's kind of like a positive, it's a feng shui, like keeping the energy going up in your life.
Sounds valuable.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting to me. Yeah. That is where my scientific mind does come in, is I like to find evidence and think about the unseen world in ways that you can quantify or measure in the science world, and that's another form of communication.
That is.
But anyway, I kind of went way out there, and I did bring it back.
Hey,
though.
I'm letting you run.
I did bring it
you
back.
You run
though.
wild. You go where you're feeling.
Yeah, I did bring it back though. But yeah, that communication. So I feel like, back to what we were talking about, the most important part of that for me is, picking the right time and place, I think, is good, and working on my own skills, that if it does evoke some kind of a very angry response, then how to, making sure that I can de-escalate that within myself. Like having that tool, like we talked about in the first one, was like, take a breath, look at that person like, hey, I respect you. Like bring, like diffuse the bomb, so to speak, in right. Communication. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, one last piece that I can say is, as somebody who self-proclaims as having, a victim mentality being an issue throughout your life,
yeah,
that makes perfect sense why you would want to avoid anger, I feel like, because, anger typically, as a victim, I would imagine, was directed at you in a way that, was traumatic. So, yeah, I could see that would lead me to see why you don't like arguing, why you don't like debate, and why you would be anger adverse.
Yeah.
So I can see that. I could see that, those pieces together in you.
And maybe why I look at you and see, anger where there would maybe be frustration. Like I interpret that.
Yeah, you're hypersensitive to it.
I am.
Yeah.
It's getting better.
I would say we're at a good spot here. How do you feel?
I feel good.
Yeah. Anything else you want to communicate?
I guess, just maybe think about what you value. Maybe some of the questions we've posed, like take a little time with that and see if it fits for you, and
then communicate it to us. Communicate it. And those people in your life.
Yeah. Oh, and just just keep doing your best. That's what we're gonna do. Just keep doing your best. That's all any of us can do. All right. Till next time.
SumOne signing off.
Anezka. Have a beautiful day. Ciao.